Hello, Imperium. Welcome to our little video Nax walkthrough. So, a couple of little caveats here. This is the Wrath of the Lich King version, so the trash pulls and even the bosses are slightly different. I'm going to be explaining how they're different as we go along, so just bear with me. This isn't a exact replica, but it's close-ish enough. However, I rest assured that I know what the classic Nax one is, so we're all good. I'm going to walk us through sort of the macro level on the polls. There's additional micro stuff that you'll find in the documents. But the most important part is that just sort of generally you understand what we're trying to get through here. So we're going to do the trash and the bosses. And by the end of this, you should have a very good sense of what it takes to do well in here. But for class-specific stuff, feel free to reach out to me or your class leads, and we'll have specific per fight, things, little tricks. So we're going to start with the spider wing. There are 4 wings. This is the spider wing. It's a Nubricon, Fairlina, and Maexna. After each wing, we teleport back to the middle. So here we go. First pull is a Skitterer pull. It is just a melee AoE damage pull. We're going to pull it down here with a Frost Trap. The idea here is that we want the casters, particularly with blizzards or Cone of Colds or whatever, we want as much ranged damage on these beforehand as possible, and we want the casters moving in for AoE after they've done a little bit of damage, because we don't want to lose people on these pulls. So we don't want you hellfiring right away. We don't want an immediate blast wave. We want the melee to do some damage. We want to do some blizzards and some rains of fire, so you're probably not going to pull through with those. And they're going to be slowed, so you can always just kind of kite them back. Then you move in once they're 50% or whatever and start blasting. So we do a couple of pulls of that. Then we get to this pull. There are several of these pulls or similar pulls. It starts with the Venom Stalker. That is our first kill target always. Later on, they're called Necro Stalkers. They do a charge that will hit everybody in 5 yards or 6 yards around you. So you just want everybody nice and spread out in this little corner. And then what happens is, so we pull these, and then the tanks grab. So this is the 10-man version. Oh, fuck me. Hey, Dreidel. We gotta start over. Just bear with me real quick. We don't have to actually start over. I'm just gonna go set this to 25-man. Just because it gives us a better sense of the size of the pulls. The 10-man was... everything got scaled way down. So... 25-man, yay. Okay, sorry for breaking the fourth wall there. We're back. Again, it's same shit. So on these pulls, the Venom Stalkers, those are our kill target. And then there are 3 Carrion Spinners, and there are 3 Dread Creepers. The Dread Creepers put a little debuff. That is a Mortal Strike debuff, so it is decursable. So mages and druids, that's on you. The Carrion Spinners, however, do a frontal conal attack that is about 2,000 or 3,000 poison damage. They cannot face the raid. So when we make these pulls, we'll pull the Venom Stalker in, and the tanks that are picking up Carrion Spinners drag them to the outside and make sure that they're not facing the raid. And make sure that they're not facing other tanks, and you don't want them facing anybody. And we kill the Venom Stalker, and then we kill the Carrion Spinners, and then we kill Dread Creepers. The Carrion Spinners can also do that stupid thing where they grab you with a web and pull you in front of them. Just run back straight through their body, and you will be fine. You might take a conal attack, which would suck, but shouldn't be enough to kill you if you're full health. Now we're to a Nubricon. So here's how this fight starts. The fight starts with the tank grabbing a Nubricon and running him back to that far corner on the right-hand side. The idea is he's got a little knock up and some other stuff, but you want him tanked kind of far away from the raid because of a mechanic later on. Then everybody is spread out loosely over here while we kill these 2 crypt guards. We're going to tank them right here. They have a pain in the ass. Stacking dot, and they have a pain in the ass cleave. So we burn them down, and when they die, they spawn 10 little scarabs that need to be killed. Anytime anyone dies on this fight, you are going to spawn 5 little scarabs. It sucks. Those need to be AoE'd down because they'll go and womp a healer, and they do hit reasonably hard, and they have a decent health. So on pull, we kill the 2 crypt guards. Everybody does, and then we get to a Nubricon. When we're on a Nubricon alone, we want everybody spread out kind of horizontally. We don't want there to be like 5 people in a line vertically, going this way, because he does an impale that knocks anybody up, and it is a cone. So it knocks people up, and it is enough to kill you if you're not all the way full health. So you can use Noggenfogger Elixir. You can get shielded. You can get a mage can cast Slow Fall on you because you do get knocked up high. So they can look up, click on you, and hotkey it if they're fast. So, but the idea here is that be ready to take a healing pot or whatever you need to be sure that you're topped off. It's physical damage, so no kind of prop potion is going to save you. So when we pull a Nubricon, he has, on top of the Impale ability, he also has something called Locust Swarm. It's a small AoE around him that will silence everyone and prevents all attacks. So he can't be hit, really, by melee. The idea is it's an untankable amount of damage, and you need to run out of it as the main tank. So we kite him along the outside of that little poop river, all the way back to this starting door in the doorway again. And by the time you get back over here, the debuff has ended. In order for the tank to be fast enough to do that, they either need to use a swiftness potion, or they need to have a hunter standing over here with aspect on, and as soon as it casts, he starts, the hunter and the tank start running. So we get him back into his spot, into his new tanking spot. Locust Swarm has ended. In the meantime, all the melee have run out early. All of the ranged and casters are stacking up again because he can't impale you during Locust Swarm. And you kill the new Crypt Guard that he summons, and then you kill his ads, and then he should be back in his spot ready to go, and we DPS the shit out of him again, and he dies. And that's the whole fight. We do that once or twice, and we got a dead boss. Everyone needs to have a sense of personal accountability of their own life. They need to not pull threat, because a Nubricon is one of the 2 untauntable bosses. And it's not a super challenging fight. So then we move on to more trash, and lots of trash is going to be the theme of Nax Ramus. So we move in, we pull this. There's another skitterer pack that is coming right now. We pull that one next. I have stupid range. We pull that next back into the room. We pull this group on the right back into the room. These are carrion spinners again, so they're the guys that you got to face away from the raid, and that do the little suck you in thing, except that it is a Crypt Reaver this time. The Crypt Reaver does need to die first because it does a lot of single target threat. So we kill it, or damage rather. So we kill it right here, and then we face the Crypt or the carrion spinners away. A couple here, one here, and then we're done. But we keep them faced away. And it is a great idea to remain on a lot of these poles, by the way. It is a great idea to find a way to be out of line of sight on the pole. Because you can get a couple of bad early cone attacks, and all of a sudden you've taken 6k damage. And it's really not pretty. So the big thing on the Spider Wing, guys, is there's a ton of nature damage. The best thing you can do to stay alive, to avoid those one-time holy shit I got screwed by circumstances kind of thing, is have a nature potion running. Okay, we're doing another skitterer pull here, and then there's a skitterer path that we pull back, and we pull this one back. So that's the best thing you can do. These Venom Stalkers are actually Necro Stalkers, which are upgraded versions of the Venom Stalkers from earlier. They hit like a truck. They do a charge, so you need to stay spread out. Every time you see a Necro Stalker or a Venom Stalker, everyone needs to stay spread out to prevent the charge getting the most damage. They can also do a dot that is a 5k per tick dot. Two of those, and you're done. So poison cleansing is absolutely paramount during all of these pulls. It's absolutely paramount, and it needs to be done like literally within a tick. Because most people aren't going to survive a 5k nature damage tick, much less 2 of them. So it needs to be dispelled immediately. So we'll make this pull. There's another skitterer pull. And then we are into the Naxxramas cultists and acolytes. So these guys, there's actually 6 of these pulls, or maybe even 7 of these pulls in Classic. The Naxxramas acolytes do a Shadow Bolt Volley and an Arcane Explosion. They're a huge pain in the ass. So the idea is that you want to blow them up as fast as possible. So like on this pull, there's 2 acolytes, and the rest are cultists. Cultists just have an AoE knockback that's shadow damage and is annoying as fuck. But they're not particularly lethal. They still need to be tanked. They still need to be treated seriously. But what we want in this pull is to get the acolytes dead through single target and cleave as fast as humanly possible. So on pull, for example, we'll have all the hunters, mages, pyroblast. We'll do a pull timer on all of these. Warlocks, Shadow Bolt, the first one, and we'll have a DPS warrior on the Skull and X, or just Skull. And the tanks will pick up everything else, because we need 1 or 2 of those down as quickly as they can, because you can have pulls where, see, this pull is 3. There are pulls that will have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And those pulls are nasty. So it's really not something you want to fuck around with. And so you need to treat them seriously. Shadow protection potions are probably the saving grace on those pulls. As it does more than the Arcane Explosion does. However, I understand that that's expensive things, so just how importantly do you value your life? That's the important part. So now we're at Fairlina. On pull, these followers are going to get killed first because they do nothing, and so we just kill them. All of the Naxxramas worshippers, all 4 of them, are going to get pulled over here and tanked by a couple of tanks. We tank her right where she stands. Her 2 main abilities, well, 3 main abilities, her 2 that everyone needs to worry about are Rain of Fire and Poison Bolt Volley. Rain of Fire can kill you in a couple of ticks. So, despite the fact that healers are going to try to keep you up through the Poison Bolt Volley and they're going to be cleansing you, you need to be ready as someone that is not a healer with a greater fire protection potion if needs be, because it will be the difference between life and death on this fight for you. If you are half a second too slow moving out of the Rain of Fire and you take 2 ticks, you can probably die. So it's that unforgiving, or at least it was. So the other big thing that you need to know about is Fairlina has a Frenzy. That Frenzy, she'll attack 150% faster. It's an additional 150% and hit way harder. She can almost global a tank. So that tank, tanks are going to have to wear some mitt gear on this. She is tauntable, but it's a dangerous game because not only will she be hitting hard, but also the healers will be transitioning heals. So it doesn't really work. So the idea here is that when you mind control one of these worshippers, because they're mind controllable, they will kill them. They have an ability where they will kill themselves, but they will remove the frenzy off of Fairlina. So what you want to have happen is there's 2 different ways to go about this. If she is already frenzied and a worshipper uses that ability, it will silence her from using frenzy for a full minute. So there are 4 worshippers, so she can cast it 4 times, and that's the amount of time we have to kill her. We'll have 4 minutes, effectively, 4.5 minutes. but that means that it needs to be done within like a global cooldown of her casting it. Otherwise, the tank can die. So the other kind of safer way to do it is to have these worshippers. You can, right before she casts a frenzy, you can blow one up on her, and it will only prevent her from casting frenzy for 30 seconds. But she never goes into frenzy either, so there's no worry about the tanks. She does hit very hard normally, which is why she can global a tank when she has frenzy. So the idea is, if our DPS is really good, we'll do a preemptive frenzy break. If our DPS needs more time, we will likely wait until she casts frenzy, and the tanks will find a way to rotate through that. Either way, it should be a dead boss, and we should not struggle too much with this fight. Oh look, I got an achievement. But that's the whole fight. It's have a little fire contingency for yourself, and tanks get ready to get walloped. And a lot of this is on the people doing MCs. Moving on. So these tomb horrors are kind of upgraded crypt stalkers from earlier, except they also have a nature damage. I believe it might be shadow damage, but I believe it's a nature damage AoE around their body. So what we want to have happen is a tank picks it up. These are just dread creepers. They're the ones that do the healing debuff. They're not a big deal. A couple tanks pick these up. We do need decurses immediately. Everybody, including melee, despite the AoE, blows up the tomb horror, blows up the dread creepers. Not a big deal. Now there's a second pull of the tomb horror dread creepers and a skitterer. And we'll just blast through that real quick. And then we get into really kind of a shit sequence of trash pulls. So we have another one of these pulls. Not too terribly big a deal. So this is where the trash pulls get different, and so it's going to be hard to visualize. Okay, so this pull I don't think is there. Instead, there are several things in this room. There's a pat of 2 plague ghouls. The plague ghouls do a cleave, and they also have I think they have an AoE aura. They need to be separated from each other because they hit super hard in melee. They need to be single targeted down and separated. Then we move to there's a Spirit of Naxxramas. It's a big black shade. They're stunnable, is the big thing. So we're going to have a stun rotation on those. You can't interrupt their Shadow Bolt volley, which is their big thing. They also open a portal that will summon ads. We shouldn't ever really see the ads. So that's kind of this first bit. So there are 2 more pulls of Necrostalker double packs that we've dealt with before. There are also 2 more patrols of Plagued Gargoyles. They do an AoE poison. We need to single target them because they do a thing where they, at 30%, they will attempt to heal to full if you don't kill them in time. So we get them to 30%, then we got to nuke them. That's why you single target them. And then there are also Necropolis Acolytes at each of these doorways. It's 2 of them. The Necropolis Acolytes are kind of the same as those Naxxramas Acolytes. They're upgraded versions. They just do a lot more damage. They are, parts of what they do are interruptible. I believe the Shadow Bolt volley is interruptible. So you single target them down and don't tank them next to each other. And that's kind of it on those. So there's that pull. And so ideally what we're doing here, so in Classic, these rooms are full of these, and we'll run into this in the military quarter again. It's full of these dogs. I don't remember what the dogs do, but I also remember wiping to them all the time. So what we're actually going to do is skip those, provided Warcraft logs lets us. We're going to skip these, and we're going to run over here, and then we're all going to stand over here, and we're all going to heal to full and be ready because there are two Necropolis acolytes in this doorway. So what we do is we just run straight into here and we pull them and kill them. And it's not a huge deal. Just needs to be done carefully. These pulls don't exist. There is a skitterer pack, but we shouldn't ever pull it. And this pull does not exist in Classic Nex. Oh, fuck off. So now we're at the last boss of this wing. Maxna's a pretty fun boss. She's challenging for one specific reason, which is an ability called Web Spray. So Web Spray stuns everyone in the raid without exception for 8 seconds. That means that the tank is taking her with no heals for 8 seconds. That's the big mechanic. So I would consult the written guide on this because there's a lot of little tips and tricks in the written guide that everyone should follow. But that's the big mechanic we need to worry about. It happens like every minute or something, so we should only see a couple of them. But the other thing is she has an enrage at 20 or 30%. So if she's enraged during the web spray, the tank is definitely dead. So the idea is kind of like Nefarian, where we don't want to push him over when it's about to be really bad. We wait, we get him down to the enraged point. We then take a web spray, we get through it, and then we burn 30%. That's the time to blow cooldowns. Here's the other stuff that's going on. There's a poison that will get put on the tank. That is a 90% healing debuff. It is fucking awful. It needs to be dispelled immediately. There needs to be someone assigned to stop, cast, dispel it right away. It's a big deal. The other thing she does is she web wraps 3 people and then throws them over here. They get launched up onto the wall and they're not targetable by melee. Ranged, your responsibility, because we're going to be tanking your kind of center of the roomish, right here. Ranged or standing back over here. Your responsibility is to break those people out instantly. They do not have a lot of health, but they take nature damage. Nature damage, as long as they're in there. So they need to be broken out right away. And also, just on top of that, the healers and the ranged need to be stacked on top of each other because little spiders will spawn in packs of 5 during the fight, and they need to be AoE'd, so it's a lot easier if all the healers who will have the aggro are just standing there. They don't have a ton of health, but they do need to be dealt with, otherwise they will kill a healer. So the idea is we DPS, we're tanking, we're fine. When a web spray hits, the tank is topped off, they've blown a cooldown, and are able to survive. They will need shields, full hots, everything that they can get. And then once we come out of the web spray, there need to be assignments for immediately making sure that there's no necrotic poison on, like you're spamming that button on web spray for the last second. There needs to be a couple of people assigned for a nature swiftness greater heal or healing wave or whatever. There needs to be someone assigned for a shield immediately because the tanks, they're definitely, we'll have trouble surviving 8 seconds. We're definitely not going to survive 10 or 12 seconds before a bunch of heals land. So this is a really, really punishing fight if your assignments aren't clear and you don't follow your responsibilities. If you do those things, this really isn't such a bad fight, which is why we're starting in the spider wing. But that is the whole fight. We get her down to a certain point, we wait for a web spray, and then we finish her.
And that is our first wing of Naxxramas. We will go ahead and do the next wing in just a minute.